Welcome back, guys. Today we're going to continue our NFL predictions with the Philadelphia Eagles. And pretty much everyone knows what happened to the Eagles last year. They went to the Super Bowl. But last year, when I made my predictions for this team, I actually said they were going to be a pretty solid football team. I said so myself. I looked at what they did in the offseason, and I looked at their very Cape Cup cupcake schedule they had, and I said there's no way the Eagles aren't going to miss the postseason next year. And at that point, the Eagles were basically a floater team. No one knew what to expect from them. But I knew, and what we saw was what we got. And looking at their schedule, other than the Chiefs, they had the best record. In fact, they were the last team to lose a game heading in 2022. Because and some of their games, it wasn't even fair for the other team. They just wiped the dog because they had a nice little balance on offense. They ran the ball well. They passed the ball when needed. They had weapons to throw the ball to, something that the Eagles haven't had in God knows. But the only three losses they had were to the Commanders, the Cowboys, and Saints. And the latter two didn't even have Jalen Hurts for those games. But there are certain people who call the Eagles out as frauds, saying that they were the benefactors of a very paper soft schedule. And I could argue that, given that they took on a very weak AFC South division, and they took on a very, very weak, and some of their teams they played weren't up to par, like the Cardinals, the and and the Bears, they were not up to par what they were. So that's so them being called frauds. Eh, I don't know. And that takes us to their playoff run, where in each of their first two playoff games, they only gave up 7 points. Beat the Giants because the Giants didn't have any wide receivers or any talent to match what the Eagles had, or the 49ers, which they only beat up on them because the 49ers quarterbacks were injured like crazy. So that takes us to the Super Bowl, where they met up against a guy who knows the team very well, Kansas City, coached by Andy Reid. And for the most part in that Super Bowl, the Eagles, they had control, but all of a sudden the third quarter and in the fourth quarter, the defense collapsed. They did not get a single sack on Patrick Mahomes that game. Not one. And as a result, they lost by 3. And now to look at the highlights for this team. The off season where they made the most noise. Acquiring eight. Here's some of the things that they done. They acquired AJ Brown from the Titans. They got Jaquiski Tartt from the 49ers, James Bradberry from the Giants, CJ Gardner Johnson for the Saints, Linval Joseph for the Vikings, Adam Suh from the Bucks, and they acquired Robert Quinn for the Bears. That's just to name a few things that they've done. They've done many others, but man, if there was a team that easily won the 2022 offseason, it would be the Eagles. And as I mentioned earlier, they had a very, very easy schedule. And I know a lot of people complain that that's not fair. They had a very easy schedule. But you play who you're scheduled. I don't think the NFL have any control on that. And at 14 wins, it was a franchise best for the Eagles. Now for some lowlights, and there weren't really many. One, they lost to the Commanders week 10. It was the first loss they had this season. Then Jalen Hurts, his shoulder, in a week 15 win over the Bears. That caused him to miss 2 games. If the Eagles would have won one of those 2 games, he probably would have sat out the rest of the regular season and got himself ready for the postseason. But he ended up coming back week 18 against the Giants to finish the job. And then the obvious low light, they lost the Super Bowl, but they had nothing to be ashamed about. They played a very very good game, and many people think they're gonna make it back and make an even bigger run. Now on to some additions and subtractions, and I, I and I actually got them backwards. So let's talk about their subtractions first. They lost Miles Sanders to the Panthers. Andre Dillard's gone. TJ Edwards gone. Marcus Epps is gone. CJ Gardner Johnson, he's now going to the Lions. Gardner Minshew's with the Colts to be with the offensive coordinator there, who used to be with the Eagles. And Kazir White is with Arizona to be with the defensive coordinator who used to be with the Eagles. They added Marcus Mariota, Rashad Penny, Terrell Edmonds from the Steelers, and DeAndre Swift. They traded for him draft day to the Lions. But the draft, they were one of the biggest winners in the draft. And at this point, I'm gonna change their names to the Philadelphia Eagles to the Philadelphia Bulldogs because their two first round picks, they used it on Jalen Carter, a defensive tackle from Georgia, and Nolan Smith, a linebacker or defensive end, depending on what scheme he's running, to the to the at the 30th pick. And the Georgia picks didn't stop there. They also had Keely Ringo, a corner who had a first round, who had some teams had him in the first round before the process began, but he fell all the way down to the fourth to take him. And they also drafted Tanner McKee, a quarterback from Stanford. But let's be real, he's not going to be a necessity. But despite all of now with all these acquisitions, and many people are hyping that the Eagles are going to make it back to make a big run. Can they do it? Let's take a look. All right, Philadelphia fans, don't come at me. So, week 1, you're on the road against the New England Patriots in a game that they're going to honor Tom Brady. And in this game, I most certainly got the Eagles winning. I just think the Eagles are the better team. And that's pretty much going to be the case for most of these games this year. Because week 2 against Minnesota, I think the Eagles will be way better than the Vikings this year. And it's Kirk Cousins on prime time. He never wins on prime time. And then week 3, a Monday night game against the Bucks. Oh yeah, Eagles winning big time. And week 4 against the Washington Commanders. This game will be I think this is going to be a really good game. A revenge game for the Eagles. If you remember, week 10, first loss of the season, came to the Commanders. But week 5 against the Rams, I think this is where the Eagles will get their first loss of the season. They're not going to have this, oh, we're going to win the first 10 games. Perhaps they could be undefeated. I think this year, there are going to be a lot of teams that's going to figure them out. So with that being said, I got then there's week 6 at the New York Jets. And one thing's for certain, Eagles never lost to the Jets. In the Jets 50-60 year history, the Jets never beat the Eagles. And I don't think it's going to start today. That brings us to a Sunday night game the against the Miami Dolphins, where I do have the Eagles winning that game as well. But week 8 and week 9, they're going to suffer two pretty bad divisional losses. One of them will be to the Commanders. I do have the Eagles splitting. And a rare home loss to the Dallas Cowboys. Yes, I know. Yeah, I know. I'm just as shocked as you are. Which gives them 3 losses before the bye week, 6-3. Then, after the bye week, one of the biggest games of the year, against the Kansas City Chiefs on Monday night. Rematch of the Super Bowl from last year. And I got if this game was in Philly, I probably would have leaned towards the Eagle, but this is Arrowhead on Monday night, which is a tough environment. I have to go with the Chiefs here. So the Eagles will have 3 losses in a row. What is going on? But the rest of the way, they are going to find their groove. Like, I got them beating the Bills week 12. I got them beating the 49ers week 13. Then week 14, I have them going on the road and beating the Dallas Cowboys to revenge. But week 15 against Seattle, I think this is going to be one of those upsets. I got Seattle winning. But the last three games are going to result in W's. 2 Giant wins and a Cardinal win, which gets them a record of 12-5, which just going to miss, which I don't know, it's probably going to make them miss out on the division. I mean, on the, sure, it's going to be enough to win their division and make the playoffs, but they're going to be in a two-way fight for that divisional title. I mean, that number one seed in the NFC. So let me know in the comments below what record you think the Eagles are going to have. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.